Lawrence Baker, as I live and breathe.
How are you, mate? Good to hear from you.
Yeah, you too, mate. How are you doing?
Oh, good. It's been a year.
Boy, oh boy. My name is Steve Joll. I'm a Warhammer 40k nut and a radio host.
I mean, to think that I was sat with you on that boat,
Yeah.
In London, not so long ago in the grand scheme of things, and what's happened since is extraordinary.
This series of podcasts on the Frontline Gaming Network is a chance for us to meet the people who've changed the way we interact with 40k. Whether it's playing, painting, creating content, collecting, or reading about our hobby, I want you to meet the game changers.
We're obviously not based in London anymore. We are in Bath now, so we've been extremely lucky in some cases.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it was hairy for a while. Like, we had to move Ben and Rob in during the first lockdown.
Yeah.
To be able to continue to producing, because we weren't set up to be a COVID secure space. Like, no one knew what this thing was.
Right.
I remember when it first kicked off, we thought it would be a fortnight. We thought, oh, we'll be in lockdown for a fortnight.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah. Carry on.
Yeah. So this is episode 1, and in case you haven't already recognised the laugh and the name, let's do a proper introduction. My guest today is the host and founder of Tabletop Tactics, one of the most watched and best known content creators in 40k. He's an accomplished player of 40k who's had tournament wins at No Retreat and assorted other events, and most recently a second place with an undefeated run at maybe the last event in the UK before COVID locked the world down. He's known as the Spider, which we will discuss in this conversation as well, also known to never roll below a 3 on camera, and also to be one of the nicest guys in a hobby packed with nice guys. Lawrence Baker, thanks for taking the time to chat. Really appreciate it.
Steve, thank you so much for what an introduction.
I know.
Wow, thank you.
I know. I put a lot of
try and live up to it.
Put a lot of time and effort into that. So, can I start with before we get into the bigger stuff? Where does the name Spider come from? Was the model with all the arms first, or was the nickname first and then you modelled the archon around that?
That's a question. So the model did come afterwards, but the Cabal name that I had for my Drukhari were the Void Spiders, and the archon that led it was always known as the Spider, and so I just figured that name would fit.
Yeah.
And so did the audience apparently, and so it sort of stuck. And then of course I made the model to actually fit what the spider was afterwards.
Yeah. I want to get to the nicknames thing as well, because this is, I think, a unique point of difference with you guys, and we'll touch on that a little later on.
Sure.
But if we can go to way back before Tabletop Tactics was a thing, to the Australian years, the lost years.
Oh wow! Okay,
well,
we're going back in time now.
Yeah. Well, I think what you did there helped and informed what you're doing now, and it may even be a big key to how you guys found success early on. So you were an actor.
Yes, that's right. Okay, right. Well, let me take you down memory lane. So I was in Australia. I was born and raised in England, but my mum, while being English, of English parentage, she happened to be born in Australia. So what happened was, by some sort of fluke, really, I had access to an Australian passport. So I decided, in my younger days that I'd go and travel Australia because I've got this amazing dual citizenship. And I really wanted to explore, the land that my mum was born in. And I'd always known that I wanted to be an actor. It was always my plan to go to drama school, and do the university and so forth, and then go out and do my actoring. And what happened was, it was audition season in Australia. And on a whim, I'm the sort of person that if I see an opportunity, I just decide that, oh yeah, I'll do that now. I'm impulsive. And anyway, I auditioned and I got in.
Yeah.
And it was there that I met Bone.
Right.
Also Ben, known as Bone, who's on the channel with me.
Yeah.
And Rob. who's now a painter for Tabletop Tactics. And I'd started playing Dungeons and Dragons with them whilst we were at drama school. They'd never spoken about 40k or Warhammer or anything like that. I obviously had been playing it as a child, but I wasn't playing it at the time. And that's kind of how the relationship started between us three. That was the genesis, if you like.
Your IMDb page lists the movie Time, starring Lawrence Baker and written and directed by Benjamin Boner. But you better believe I looked for clips and I can't find anything anywhere. Is that a movie I should watch, Lawrence?
Well, you absolutely can. I'll have to send you a copy sometime. Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's forward this a little bit further then.
Yeah.
So I graduate drama school. Ben and Rob and I were in the same year, so we all graduated at the same time. And I was very fortunate. I had managed to get some success as an actor in Australia relatively quickly, actually, and was doing, as an actor goes, quite well for myself. I'd done quite a few adverts. I've done a stint on a TV series for a guest episode, a bunch of short films. After a couple of years, I was in Australia nearly 2 years after I graduated, that I was getting a decent amount of work, as in money to get by with, but it was things like adverts and short films, and there weren't very many feature films being produced in Australia. In fact, effectively what it meant was that you weren't even really getting auditions for those things because they were cast before they were, even as the script was written. So I was like, well, I'm not getting that much opportunity in what I want to be doing. So I decided that it might be a good idea to come back to London, and I'll have a more of a chance, if you like. So I naively flew back to London thinking, I've got some great credits, I can probably get an agent and so forth, and reality was that this is a long story. I hope it's not boring anyone. But
We're fascinated. We're loving it.
I'm giving you the highlights here. And I tried to get some work, tried to get an agent. And fast forwarding here, of course, I quickly found out that unless I'd been to a big drama school here, it was going to be very difficult to get an agent. Yeah. Very, very difficult indeed. Because they were like, well, look, you've got some interesting work behind you, but it's all in Australian. That we can't show that to any casting directors here. What drama school have you been to here? And I'm like, well, I haven't. And I'm like, well, there we go.
Yeah. Sydney doesn't count for as much as you hoped it would in London.
No, it didn't.
No,
it didn't. And so I went from having one of the best agents in Australia who was getting me decent auditions to basically not having an agent in the UK. And I tried to plug away. I did manage to secure a couple of adverts here, but I was right at the end of my tether. And Ben and I had been in touch the whole time. And I'm thinking at this point, you know what? This is not going the way I thought it would. I'm going to go back to Australia myself. And I was literally looking at flights. And I got a short film gig. And then, of course, the inevitable, I say the inevitable happens, but fate intervened.
Right.
And I met my wife doing this film.
Okay. So there we go. There it is.
There it is.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, and lucky for us, right? You've stayed in London, and you and Joe kicked off the channel. So Ben came into it later, but the first, well, I say you and Joe like I know what I'm talking about, but the first game is you versus Joe, and it's not what we know Tabletop Tactics as now. How did you decide, okay, you know what, making battle reports of 40k is what I want to do?
Yeah. So obviously I have given you the highlighted version, but all of that was relevant. It needed the context.
Yeah.
And then I'll tell you how I met Joe. So I was working part-time at Apple. I was working for Apple, which is big place in London, selling the iPhones and so forth.
Yeah, we've heard of Apple.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I was like, and I also met Stig working there, who's also a regular on the channel now as well. Yeah. So this will start to tie in.
Yeah.
And during my 2 years back in London, I had started playing 40k again with the guy that I had grown up playing 40k with, because we obviously came back to London. I was like, hey, how you doing? And he was still playing 40k. He said, hey, do you want to start playing again? And I was like, sure, absolutely. The only reason I'd ever really stopped is because you get to university, and I've gone traveling. Obviously, I didn't have any of my armies anymore.
Right. Sold
all of that to fund the traveling, and I just stopped playing.
Yeah.
So I got ensnared back in, and I discovered that the best way to probably learn again, because it was a brand new edition as far as I was concerned, was to watch some battle reports. Just go onto YouTube, see if there's any tutorials. And I went on, and I found that there weren't very many, actually. That you had many things like mini wargaming, which is still obviously massive and going around now, but there weren't many channels around.
Yeah.
And I was enjoying the process of watching the game being played and learning the new edition and so forth. And that was the first moment I had this idea. I was like, do you know what? I think I could do that. And that's all it was. I just had a thought. I thought I could do that. And I didn't think anything more of it. But that seed was planted in my mind the minute I started learning to play again. Fast forward 2 years, I'm thinking about returning to Australia. I meet my wife, and I decide, you know what? I'm going to hang around for this lady a little bit. I'll pause my Australia plans because,
it's love.
She becomes my wife, right?
Yeah,
exactly. So, I hang around, and it's at that point, the minute I decided I'm going to hang around, that I made a decision. Because I knew that I didn't want to stay at Apple. That's not what I wanted to do. And I really wanted to do something which actually used my, creative skills. That I'd studied 3 years to be an actor. I wanted to do something along those lines. Before that, I'd also done a lot of private writing for myself. And I'd always been interested in directing as well. So I had a strong interest in all of these fields. And I decided at that moment that if I'm going to stay, I'm going to have to control my own destiny, if you like. And so what I decided to do was, you know what? I had this thought a couple of years ago that I can create a YouTube channel. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And so I pitched the idea to my girlfriend at the time. And I said, look, I've got this crazy idea. I want to create a channel. I believe that it's got great prospects in terms of the kind of cool shows that we can do and get really creative with it and, make really immersive content. And I think this could be something really, really cool. And I was expecting a sort of no response or that's silly,
Yeah.
Instead, she was like, that's a great idea. What can I do to help?
Wow.
And I said, right. Yeah, I know. I was blown away by the answer.
That's amazing.
And so I was like, okay, well, what I need is the kitchen once a week, because we had a kitchen table. So I can set up this board, and by this point, I'd already painted my Dark Elder army over the 2 years of being there, and I'd got Joe into it. He had started his Iron Warriors. I met him at Apple, and I was like, hey, he had just moved from Brighton at the time. I was like, do you want to play this hobby with me, Warhammer? And he goes, oh, I used to play as a kid. I was like, okay. So I'd already got him in at this point, and I pitched the idea to Joe. I said, Joe, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. We're standing at Apple one day. I'd love you to be in the first video. I'd love to do a game with you. What do you think? He was very excited about it, and thus over the kitchen table. In the kitchen, Drakari versus Iron Warriors, Tabletop Tactics was born.
It should be noted as well that your very first dice roll in the very first game was to seize the initiative, and you rolled a 6 and did it.
Yeah.
And it should have been seen as an ominous portent for anyone who played against you. Let's pause a moment in the conversation here to remind ourselves we're speaking to Lawrence Baker of Tabletop Tactics fame. We will get to the incredible last 18 months he's had through a marriage, a big move, and a worldwide pandemic. But first, a little more history, including the amazing support in the early days from his future wife and his best mates. This thing of, if we just touch on the six thing for a second, this thing of being lucky, I mean, you're perceived as being someone who rolls a lot of sixes, and we give Joe or Chaos Lord Beard a hard time for rolling a lot of ones. And I've seen this with Brian Pullen on his channel as well. He tends to roll a little hotter than Adrian, who he plays against. Is that a real thing, do you think? Do you talk the universe into you being lucky, or is it just you happen to do it when it matters, or over a period of time?
Well, if you're speaking to the spider, the spider would say that the universe absolutely does bend to his will,
right,
and that he does absolutely control, physics and luck, and all of these things are completely controlled by him.
Sure.
Reality is, I probably am quite lucky, to be fair.
Yeah.
It certainly does appear that way. However, I think it's a bit deceptive, because what also happens is, and I spoke about this in a recent Tactica game, is that I always, when I'm playing the game, when we're talking Warhammer 40,000 here, I always put myself in a position to maximize my chances, right?
Right.
So that means that even if I roll poorly, I usually still get the result that I want, because I've applied that much pressure to that area of the boards that I'm going to get the result I want. It's sort of inevitable. So there's an element of luck, as there always is going to be in a dice game, but there's also an element of controlling that and stacking the odds in your favor. And I think between those two things, you end up getting the audience perception that I'm just lucky all the time.
Yeah. Without wanting to get too far down this tangent as well, because we should just watch the Tactica and get the idea. But I also think there's an element of pointing it out to people. I don't know if this is deliberate psyching out of the opponent, but pointing it out when you roll a six and it works, or you need a good roll and you get one, you go, look at that, hey, that just has what I do. And it builds that impression of, wow, this guy, I can't beat him,
It does. Well, I mean, the spider does have to win through fear. So
sure.
it makes sense that I call the six before I roll it, right?
Yeah. So you've got the first battle report underway. We're back on the timeline now. You've got your first battle report. It's up, and you get a few more going, and it's looking great. In the early months or years, was there a point at which you thought, well, it's going well, but not well enough to pay a full-time salary. I'm going to have to stay on at Apple a little longer?
Yeah, okay, good. That's a good question. So, all right, well, let's just go to the first video, because the first video was released as a total experiment, Steve. It wasn't supposed to be a polished product, right? Right. I wasn't releasing it going, oh, this is what we're this is what we're going to be about. I released it as an experiment to see, one, would anyone find it? Two, if anyone did find it, did they like what they saw? Was it along the right lines? I had an idea of where I wanted to go, and I knew from the very start that, especially after filming the first one, that actually these things take a long time to produce, and that the reality was, if we were going to want to produce a lot of them, that we would have to charge for it in some capacity, because it would be a full-time job unto itself. Make no mistake, like filming a game alone takes 8 hours.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
then
people
you've got
don't
to
realize
edit it on top of it.
Yeah.
No, they don't. They really don't. It's because of the stop-starting and creating the shots and setting up the board and making everything nice. There's a lot that goes into it. And so I released the video. I put some titles together, some graphics, and I'd gotten the logo designed. And I just thought, you know what? Because I'd already uploaded the video, and it had been privately published for about a fortnight. And I remember speaking to Joe, and I said, shall I just publish it? Should we just make it public? Because the idea was we'd build up a few, whilst I was working on a website to create like an on-demand content,
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, just do it. I mean, it'd probably be good to just get a bit of feedback, see if, even if we only get 100 views, a few people might comment and leave some good advice. I was like, okay. The problem is I hit publish, and after the first month, I'd had over 1,000 views.
Right.
Now, that isn't a lot in the grand scheme of things compared to what we get now, but with that also came 1,000 subscribers, and the views, because it was all exponential, were getting more and more, and we were getting lots of comments, and people were really digging it.
Yeah.
And it was at that point I realized, oh dear, I'm going to have to make a lot more and quickly.
We're in now. We're in. We're doing it.
We're in.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so what I did is I started filming right away. It's like, right. So every day that I had off, I would film again. And that's how it started. And for the first year, I'd managed to get the website up and running. I think it was around 2 to 3 months in. And we actually started to get interest in the website pretty much straight away as well, which was amazing. But the reality was, I was quite literally working 80-hour weeks.
Yeah.
I was working 7 days a week, 12 plus hours a day, because I'd have to go to Apple, then come home, then edit. Then on the days off, the 2 days off I'd have a week, I'd have to film the game and then start the edit process. And it was hard work. And after a year, I'd gotten to the point where we were in an interesting position. I was in a position where I could go, maybe I could leave Apple, but it would be a risk.
Right.
Maybe I could, because at this point I've obviously jumped a bit ahead in the story here, but at this point I was full-time again at Apple.
Right.
So I'd started as part-time, and then when I decided to stay, I went back to full-time because I realized that I wasn't going to be doing the acting here, and that's how it all came about. But it was tough. So I basically had to make a decision. Do I risk, leaving this job and going into an industry which is not really proven, and everyone stable around me would be like, Lawrence, what are you doing? You're crazy. You can't go and play toy soldiers, because that was the perception. This isn't a real job, sort of thing. And look, to an extent, they're right. It is a really weird job. But I'm like that. I just went, look, I didn't go to drama school for 3 years to work in a job I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
So I'd left, and I went, I'm all in.
I sense there was another conversation with your previously supportive significant other at that point as well.
Well, this is the funny thing. She was always supportive.
Yeah.
She said, I believe in it. I believe in you. This will work. And so, she was nervous, don't get me wrong, when I said, look, I'm quitting my job to do this full time, because I believe if we make more content, which I've got more time to do if I'm doing it full time, that we will grow faster. And yeah, that was it. Now at this point, I'm going to thread in Ben.
Right.
So after that first year, we had been speaking to Ben, and I told Ben about Tabletop Tactics, saying, look, I've created this channel. It's going really quite well. If you're ever back in London, because don't forget he's gone back to Australia at this point, it would be great to have you involved. You'd be very welcome. I could teach you how to play, because he had actually, I found out at this point, played as a kid himself as well. So the funny thing was, he immediately went, let's do it. I want to come over.
Wow.
Let's do it. I'm really, really keen.
Yeah.
And so that was what triggered it. And so after that first year, Ben got involved. I'm now doing it full time. And well, the rest, as I say, is as they say, is history.
Yeah.
That's how it was born.
Let's touch on those nicknames, because Ben is Bone, Joe is Beard, and we've got Chef and Sanger and the General, and the Spider. Are the nicknames something that just kind of evolved, or was this like a marketing tactic? Was it a deliberate decision?
Well, it was a deliberate decision in terms of me. Because I actually named myself the Spider, hilariously.
Right.
So there we go. Don't tell anyone.
All right,
everyone.
Your secret is safe. Your secret is safe with us.
But it wasn't really a marketing thing. It sort of came about because it felt very natural, and I tell you why. When I first released that video, Beard had this big beard,
right,
and pretty much from the first video, I found like the internet loves to give people a nickname.
Yeah.
So the internet will do it for you, right? And so they kept calling this guy Beard. And I'm like, right, well, they love calling you Beard. You're getting called Beard. They had already created that nickname for him. So then I was like, well, look, I'll call myself the Spider.
Yeah.
It just seemed like a natural conclusion. And Joe was like, well, why are you calling yourself the Spider? I said, because the spider, the void spiders, obviously. And he's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, Bone was already called Bone. He had that nickname from high school.
Okay.
So when he came on, I was like, this is Bone. And because I was calling him Bone in drama school, so we, as a group, a friendship group, we sort of had nicknames anyway.
Right.
And then Sanger just came about because of Sanguinius and doing Blood Angels.
Yeah.
And so then it just became a thing.
Yeah.
And now the audience just, they only refer to us as
by your nicknames. Yeah, which is wonderful. I mean, that's just, and as I mentioned earlier, it's a point of difference. About here in the conversation, Lawrence and I really fast forward to about a year ago, when I first met him at a London restaurant in July of 2019. Lawrence Baker was packing boxes to move his whole team to Bath from London, along with his wife-to-be. He was also about to get married, and he just launched a campaign to raise money for the channel. More on that in a moment. This is a man who likes to be busy and never does anything by halves.
I mean, the time has gone so quickly. A lot's happened in it, but since starting Tabletop Tactics to where we are now has been an absolute whirlwind. It's been crazy. It's been crazy hard work. Blood, sweat, and tears has gone into it. Yeah. But it's obviously been well worth it, and we've still got amazing things to come, like even more better formats, and everything's kicking off from January as well. But yeah, I mean, look, I don't do things by half, as you say. Yeah. And I just decided that, look, we need to expand. We need to get the crew on full time, because what I was really keen to do is, from the outset, really, is get to a point where I could give back and hire people, create jobs, hire my friends, create creative careers for folks which otherwise wouldn't have the opportunities to actually participate in them. Because the creative industry, things like acting or musicians, the arts in general, are actually really difficult to get into and earn a stable income from. And it's sad because there's a lot of artists out there which literally cannot live by working on their art. They have to do jobs which ultimately they're not into. So what I wanted to do was create something which could, add to the entertainment industry, if you like, and give people the opportunity to come and work for us. And it worked out. Well, it's happening.
That campaign that you launched, and I think you said you were going for £10,000, but that went just crazy. That gave you an idea of the support that was out there for you. Surely that must have felt amazing.
I was embarrassed to ask for 10,000. I didn't even think that we would get to 10,000. I thought that because the reality was we got this place, but the studio was quite literally a husk. It needed insulation, it needed new stud walls, it needed power. It needed building from the brickwork up. And we just needed that money to give us a head start on it, really. Yeah. And I thought, well, look, I'm going to throw this out there. It's the only way we're going to be able to get it done within 6 months, and the response was incredible. It was so incredible it broke the website because of the amount of people trying to load it. So
yeah. Well,
go on.
No, I was just going to say, what's remarkable to me, and I think I sent you pictures from back here in New Zealand when I got back, there were people in New Zealand on the other side of the world, and in Australia and the States and around Europe, who were buying the T-shirts and the markers and buying lodge memberships and contributing. You're influencing the game as far and wide physically as it's possible to do, which, again, how does that feel to you? How does that play?
Incredible, humbling, actually, to be honest, because you have to bear in mind, and I get a taste of it, I guess, when I go to events and you meet folks that are viewers of the channel. But from our point of view, when we're here, a bunch of very, very close friends making the content, you don't get the sense of how many people are watching, really, because numbers are numbers, but that's all they are. You don't see the people and the actual lives that you're affecting. You hope that you're providing something which is fulfilling and entertaining, and that you're doing something valuable. But you don't really get the sense of what the scale is, not really, until you start going to events. And that's one of the reasons I love going to events, because when you meet people that say, "Hey, Lawrence, I've been watching your channel for the last year. I've something pretty bad has happened to me, and I've suffered from X, Y, and Z, and your channel has been an amazing outlet of entertainment and relief for me." And it's moments like that where you go, "Oh, wow," because we don't see the people, we don't have a live audience. It's humbling. It's really humbling, and I feel that we're very lucky to be doing what we're doing.
I know I promised you 30 minutes, but if I can just touch on one or two more things really quickly.
Of course.
I think one of the big things is as much as the production values are important, and you've got a background in writing and you know how to direct and frame a shot. Do you think the secret, though, of the success of the channel is the relationships and the friendships and the banter and the laughter? Is that a big part of it?
That is the part of it. That is the soul of it. You can dress something up, and make it as absolutely amazing visually as possible, but without the depth of personality, it will never ultimately last. You see, because I think YouTubing, if you want to call it that, it's blogging, isn't it? People like to connect with the personalities, and I think what we have here at Tabletop Tactics is a group of, we're all best friends, so when you're seeing us on camera rolling the dice, and we're giving each other a hard time, or making it difficult for the opponent, and all of the joking, it's all real. It's not put on. It's and I think that chemistry, it can't really be faked. So that's probably the main reason for the success. I think we do have genuine bonds here, and I suppose we are genuinely quite funny to watch.
My thanks to Lawrence Baker from Tabletop Tactics. Lawrence and Joe and Bone and the rest of the team can be found at tabletoptactics.tv and on YouTube, of course.
I suppose we are genuinely quite funny to watch.
My thanks to Lawrence Baker from Tabletop Tactics. Lawrence and Joe and Bone and the rest of the team can be found at tabletoptactics.tv and on YouTube, of course. Next week, Brian Pullen, Bridger Hahn and Adrian Phillips are the Tabletop Titans. They've made a business out of high-quality, live-streamed battle reports. We go behind the scenes to find out how they do it. We'll see you then. I'm Steve Joll. This has been 40K Game Changers.